Chapter 24 to 25. 2 days had quickly passed and the day of the Chunin exams had finally come to Konohagakure no Sato. The event was a tradition among the hidden villages of the elemental nations to test the progress of their genins outside of the war. The Chunin exams were held every 2 years in different villages and was thus deemed a prosperous event for the village it was held in. It not only attracted a lot of customers and tourists to the village but also augmented the status and the economy of the village. Konoha was currently swarming with shinobi from different villages, namely, Kyumogakure no Sato, Sunagakure no Sato, Otogakure no Sato and Amigakure. Minato had called most of his shinobi who were still on recon mission outside, to amplify the village's security. There was at least one jounin squad planted on each gate of the village and the important buildings inside. The first part of the Chunin exams which was going to be held in the Konoha Academy had dozens of Konoha jounins for the purpose of proctoring the test as well as security. It was 7:15 in the morning and Sasuke, Hinata, and Sakura could be seen walking towards the academy at a brisk pace. The three had met at Training Ground 7 and decided to walk together from there on. For most part of the walk, each of them remained quiet as they thought about what the first part of the exam would be like. None of them were given any details about the exam. So, it was quite a mystery to them. Out of the three, Sasuke felt the most confident and even excited at the prospect of facing shinobi from different villages. He could feel that he had become stronger since their mission in Nami no Kuni and wanted to test out his strength against more people. His fight against Zabuza and Haku had opened his eyes to several things he could improve upon to better himself as a shinobi. While he knew that he was incredibly strong for a genin, he could not win all fights through sheer power alone. That thought made him chuckle since that was not the case with Naruto. After training with the blonde, the past week, and getting to know more about his past, Sasuke had come to understand the hardships his friend had gone through to reach the level he's at. It had also made him wonder if he could remain sane after going through the same experiences Naruto had. "What are you thinking about, Sasuke-kun?" Sakura asked curiously, after noticing his face go through several emotions. "Nothing of importance. I was just thinking about the Chunin exams." Sasuke replied casually. Sakura just replied with an, "Oh," and became quiet once again. She couldn't help but be slightly nervous. "Sakura, you're one of the smartest kunoichi I know of. Don't be so worried. Just wait and watch, all of us will pass the Chunin exams with flying colors," Hinata said, trying to cheer her up. Frankly, she wasn't that worried about the exam. She was quite confident in her abilities. Even though, she didn't really know anything about the genins from the other villages, considering the training she put herself through the past week, she was certain that her performance would be deemed adequate for Chunin rank. Putting that matter aside, she was wondering as to where Naruto and Kakashi were. She did want to meet them before the start of the exam. A few minutes later, as the three entered the academy, they were surprised by the number of shinobi inside the building. "Wow, there's so many of them," Sakura commented in slight wonderment. Sasuke simply ignored the swarm of people and walked towards the designated room that was on the first floor. Hinata and Sakura also quickly followed behind their teammate, not wanting to be late. However, Hinata and Sakura abruptly stopped behind Sasuke and saw him stare towards a door to their right. Following his line of sight, the two were slightly surprised at the commotion. There were two shinobi, clearly in disguise, blocking the entrance of the door which had the number of the room where the first part of the Chunin exam was to be supposedly held. Sasuke smirked at the foolishness of the genins who were arguing with the two shinobi to let them in. "Come on, let's go check what that's about," Sasuke stated, and before the two girls could voice their opinion, the Uchiha walked off. "He never listens, does he? He's going to make us late," Hinata said with a sigh. Sakura merely chuckled and prodded Hinata to come. It wouldn't hurt them if they were a minute or two late. "Hey, let us through," yelled one of the genins heatedly, who had the symbol of Amigakure on his headband. The two shinobi guarding the door laughed at the three genins. "Do you really think you can pass the Chunin exams? It's not something for kids like you," stated one of the disguised shinobi. The other shinobi laughed once again at the genin squad who were standing their ground firmly. One of the genins lost his cool slightly and aimed a punch towards the shinobi who caught the fist effortlessly. "You call that a punch? You won't even scratch a 4-year-old kid with that strength," mocked the second shinobi. It was at this moment that Sasuke approached the group of people. "Oh, look, what do we have here?" One of the rookie genin squads stated the first shinobi with a devious smirk. "You're not fooling anyone with that genjutsu. It's simply stupid and moreover, this isn't even the first floor." How pathetic. Sasuke said with a smirk. Hinata and Sakura stood beside Sasuke and the two were also quite frankly, at a loss of words. The other Genin squad looked at the Uchiha weirdly before one of them stepped up with an arrogant look on his face. You're quite the proud one, Uchiha. Better watch out, or you might find yourself dead like the rest of your clan. Hinata and Sakura gasped lightly on hearing those words. Sasuke awakened his Sharingan and narrowed his eyes at the Genin as he clenched his fists. No one dared to say anything about his clan and get away with it. Before the Amigakure Genin could react, Sasuke threw a kick towards his face. However, the Uchiha was highly surprised when his kick was suddenly stopped by a Konoha Genin dressed in complete green spandex. When did he get here? Sasuke thought, intrigued by the person's speed. It's not very youthful to hit someone from another village before the Chunin exam begins, stated the person as he gripped Sasuke's leg. However, Sakura and Hinata were genuinely bewildered by the newcomer's looks. The person had shiny black hair in a bow-cut style, round eyes with prominent lower eyelashes. But the most prominent feature were the person's extremely thick eyebrows. And the green jumpsuit with orange leg warmers looked simply hideous to the girls. The two girls were further creeped out when the person glanced towards them and gave a large smile. Ugh, what in the world is that supposed to be? Sakura whispered to her teammate. She had never seen someone wear such clothing. Hinata awkwardly chuckled, finding herself in the same boat as Sakura. Why are you asking me? How am I supposed to know? Hinata replied in a whisper. By now, the Konoha Genin released Sasuke's leg and promptly moved in front of Sakura and Hinata. Are you Sakura Haruno? Asked the green-clad Genin. Sakura backed a few steps at the sudden closeness. Yes, I am, replied Sakura, uneasily. It's nice to meet you, Sakura-chan. My name is Rock Lee, the handsome beautiful wild beast of Konoha. And I would like to take you out on a date, expressed the person with enthusiasm and gave another wide smile. Sakura's eyes widened to great proportions on hearing those words. She slightly looked towards Hinata, who was trying her hardest not to laugh. How about no? Sakura intoned with a ghastly look on her face. She couldn't believe someone she had never met had the galls to ask her out on a date of the blue. Before Lee could reply, he heard Sasuke's voice and turned around immediately. How did you do that? Sasuke asked keenly. Even though he hadn't put much effort into his kick, Lee had literally appeared out of nowhere. He couldn't even see Lee move in front of him, and that had surprised Sasuke greatly. Sasuke Uchiha. You were Rookie of the Year in your batch. I would like to challenge you to a match to test my own strengths, Lee stated out loud as a look of seriousness formed in his eyes. Sasuke smirked at the confidence this person showed. You know who I am, and still you want to challenge me? You may have surprised earlier, but that won't happen again, Sasuke replied confidently. I want to prove that hard work can surpass a natural-born genius. You are hailed as the strongest genin in your batch, and I wish to see if I'm capable enough to defeat you in a taijutsu spar, Lee said. Sasuke quirked an eyebrow at the odd request but nodded nonetheless. He would be lying if he said he wasn't interested to see what the person was capable of. But, Sasuke-kun, we need to report to the assigned room in 15 minutes. You don't want to be late, do you? Hinata asked. Trust me, this won't take too long. You guys can go ahead if you want, Sasuke replied and turned around to follow Lee. Yet again, Hinata sighed at the pride that Sasuke always seemed to have. You know, we might as well go and watch how that person fights, Sakura said. Hinata merely nodded as the two girls quickly followed after Sasuke and Lee. About a minute later, Sakura and Hinata found themselves standing in a large empty hall with Sasuke and Lee standing on opposite sides. So, only taijutsu yeah? Sasuke asked. Hi, that is correct, Sasuke. I'm unable to use ninjutsu. That's why I have devoted my entire life in becoming a master at taijutsu. Today, I shall prove that even a failure can beat a genius like you, Lee stated with utmost seriousness. Sasuke, Hinata, and Sakura were once again surprised to hear Lee's words. Hinata promptly activated her Byakugan and observed Lee's chakra coils. She was shocked to see how underdeveloped his chakra coils were. That's impossible. I have never seen anyone with such underdeveloped chakra coils. Based on how poorly formed his chakra coils are, he can't mold any chakra at all. How did he even manage to pass the graduation exam? Hinata said, unable to believe her own eyes. Even Sakura found it improbable to believe what she was hearing. She had never heard or come across any shinobi who could not utilize chakra. That alone made her realize how much she did not know about the shinobi world. It also further increased her interest in watching how Lee fared in taijutsu. Although surprised by the revelation, Sasuke did not comment on anything he heard. His eyes were solely focused on the person before him. With an unknown call, both Sasuke and Lee rushed towards each other with impressive speeds. To Sasuke's surprise, Lee moved much faster than him, and a second later, he completely disappeared out of the Uchiha's view. The next second, Sasuke found himself punched at the back and he was flung away. Regaining his composure, Sasuke flipped in midair. But, before he could even land, Lee once again appeared in front of him and aimed a punch to his face. With quick reflexes, Sasuke raised his arms to block the punch. However, he cursed when he felt the strength behind it. Skidding a few feet back, Sasuke quickly jumped to his left to dodge his opponent again. He's faster than I am, and his strength is unimaginable. What kind of training does he even do? Thought a bewildered Sasuke. He quickly activated his Sharingan and lunged towards the green-clad genin. Quickly closing the distance, Sasuke aimed a punch to Lee's left cheek. In turn, Lee graciously swatted away the punch and attempted to knee Sasuke in his abdomen. This time, it was Lee's turn to get surprised as Sasuke blocked his knee with his right hand and kicked him on the lower ribs with his left leg. Not stopping there, Sasuke swiftly ducked down and attempted to swat Lee off his feet. However, Lee jumped above Sasuke's leg and kicked him on the shoulders, which yet again made the Uchiha fly back a few feet. Lee then immediately jumped back a few steps to gain some distance. Sasuke panted a little, his arms and right shoulder acting up in slight pain after taking those hits. You're a worthy opponent, Sasuke-kun. As expected of Rookie of the Year. Lee stated with a small smile. But it's time we end this. He added as he started undoing the bandages wrapped around his arms. Confused slightly by those words, Sasuke's eyes widened when Lee suddenly disappeared from his place. His Sharingan quickly tracked Lee's movements and Sasuke turned around to raise his arms just in time as Lee appeared behind him and kicked him upwards with great strength. As Sasuke flew high into the air, Lee jumped and appeared behind him. This is one of my special moves, Sasuke-kun. With this, I shall end the fight, claimed Lee as the bandages around his arms seemed to now wrap themselves around the Uchiha. Sasuke began to panic slightly as he felt his movements getting restricted. What the hell are these made of? I can barely move an inch. Thought an enraged Sasuke. He quickly channeled Raiton chakra throughout his whole body as a light blue-colored lightning cloak covered him. Before the bandages could completely wrap around Sasuke, they were torn to shreds due to the Raiton armor around Sasuke. As soon as Sasuke was free, he kicked a surprised Lee on the sternum and jumped back. That was not very youthful, Sasuke-kun. I thought we decided it was only going to be a taijutsu spar. Lee commented as he got over his shock. He couldn't believe one of his most dangerous attacks did not work against the Uchiha. We are shinobi, Lee. Nothing is ever fair in this world. You shouldn't have believed me blindly in the beginning. A shinobi uses all the tools available to him. Sasuke stated with a smirk as he calmed his breathing. That was definitely a close one. Right now, he was glad that he had trained himself physically, so that his body could keep up with his Sharingan. Hinata and Sakura swiftly appeared behind Sasuke to check up on him. They couldn't bring themselves to believe how strong Lee actually was. His physical prowess was beyond that of a genin, or a chunin for that matter. Sasuke-kun, it's enough. We should seriously head to the assigned room. We have about 4 minutes until 8. Sakura said, considering the stalemate the two genins seemed to be at. Sasuke nodded this time, as he felt tired after having that taijutsu spar with Lee. But he was also thoroughly entertained at the same time. Lee merely stared at the torn bandages around his arms as Team 7 made their way out of the hall and to the first floor of the academy. Just before the three genins left hall, Sakura turned towards Lee to apologize for leaving suddenly. However, she was horrified to see another Konoha Jounin, who appeared to be an exact replica of Lee, to be standing beside him. As the creepiness of the sight finally settled in her mind, she quickly turned around and followed Hinata and Sasuke without saying anything else. Outside the Chunin exam's first part room, Naruto and Kakashi waited outside the room to wish their team good luck for the exams. The blonde was starting to get a little worried since the three genins were cutting it very close. Asuma and Kurenai were waiting in the Jounin's lounge just beside the exam room as they had already talked to their team beforehand. Out of all the times for them to pick up your habit, Sensei, you really aren't doing that good a job. Naruto said with a sigh. Kakashi clearly heard the blonde and rolled his eyes at that comment. If he could earn a Ryo for every time someone commented about his tardiness, he would have probably been the richest man in Hai no Kuni. Huh? You say something, Naruto. Kakashi replied lazily while still keeping his eyes on his precious little book. Naruto almost face-faulted at that little joke. I ought to burn all your books to crisps right before your eyes. Naruto stated with passion. The blonde laughed heartily as that seemed to get his sensei's attention. A petrified look appeared on Kakashi's face upon hearing those words as he gripped his book a little more tightly. You wouldn't do that, my precious, stated Kakashi as he stepped slightly aside. Naruto simply shook his head at Kakashi's obsession with those books. Jiraiya and Kakashi had urged him several times to give Ika Ika series a try. He was even surprised to know that his father also reads such smut. Alas, he never got around to give it a good read. A few seconds later, Naruto turned his attention towards the hallway when he noticed that Hinata, Sasuke, and Sakura had finally arrived. He quirked his eyebrow in confusion on seeing Sasuke's worn-out look. What happened to you? Questioned Naruto. Don't even ask, Sasuke stated flatly. Although Sasuke was glad to learn that he could utilize his Sharingan quite well now, he was a tad bit ashamed of the fact that someone like Lee had forced him to such great lengths. That further made him believe that his skills weren't growing all that much inside the village. Some guy called Rock Lee challenged Sasuke-kun to a fight and fought with him on equal grounds. He's just being a little pansy that he couldn't outright beat Lee, Hinata said with a chuckle which prompted Sasuke to glare at her momentarily. Now that piqued both Kakashi and Naruto's attention. Oh, that's surprising. Looks like you got a rival, Sasuke, Naruto said with a small laugh. Meanwhile, Kakashi chuckled awkwardly since he knew that Lee was Guy's student. And considering how similar Lee was to his sensei, Sasuke was in for quite an annoying time with the green-clad genin. Sasuke merely scoffed at Naruto's comment and did not bother to reply. Anyway, all that aside, you guys should enter the room and wait for the proctor to come. It's about time. And good luck for the first part, Kakashi stated with an eye smile and gave his 3 genins a thumbs up. Thanks, sensei, Sakura replied cheerfully. She was glad to have met Kakashi and Naruto before the start of the exams. Naruto gave a hug to Sakura and wished good luck to Sasuke as the two of them walked ahead and waited outside the room. Seeing that the two weren't looking, Naruto tightly hugged Hinata and quickly kissed her on the cheeks, making her blush slightly. Naruto-kun, Hinata squealed softly and nudged him on his chest. Good luck, okay? I'm sure you'll do great, Naruto whispered into her ears. Hinata smiled lightly and hugged him back too. A few seconds later, she also followed her teammates into the room. As Naruto turned around to walk back to the Jounin's lounge with Kakashi, his eyes twitched on hearing Kakashi's giggles. Give it a rest, will you? Naruto berated the white-haired Jounin. Inside the room for Chunin exam first part. As Team 7 entered the room, they were immediately bombarded by the looks of all the other teams present in the room. They noticed that there were teams from several other villages, most notably Kyomogakure, Sunagakure and Amigakure. The teams from those villages intently looked at Team 7 as they entered the room and walked towards the other genin squads from Konohagakure. Sasuke held his head high with a confident look on his face as he looked around at the competition. He suddenly felt himself swelling with energy at the prospect of testing his strength against so many people. Hey! You guys finally came. Looks like the whole squad is here, Kiba stated out loud with a carefree attitude. His Ninken partner, Akamaru, also barked in approval as the 3 rookie squads, Team 7, 8, and 10 gathered in the middle of the room. Ino immediately rushed towards Sasuke and hugged him from behind, much to his displeasure. Sasuke-kun, you came. It feels like ages since we got together, Ino said as she hugged him more tightly. Ever since Naruto had left the academy, Ino had shifted her attention towards the Uchiha. She had come to realize that Naruto had his eyes only on Hinata, which had made her sad for quite some time. But that had made her realize if she couldn't have him, maybe she could go for Sasuke, who was just as good looking as the Namikes. Although, Sasuke always seemed to ignore her for some reason. Ino, get off him. You know he doesn't like you doing that, Sakura stated as she proceeded to separate Ino from her teammate. You're no fun, Sakura, teased Ino. Sakura shook her head at her antics. She was always way too much into boys. It wasn't to say that she didn't like boys. Just that, she didn't find anyone who interested her as much as Naruto did. What a drag, you guys are also participating in this troublesome exam. Shikamaru said lazily as he too joined to the group. Choji stood beside Shikamaru and as expected, he had a packet of chips in his hand. Yeah, Kakashi-sensei nominated our team and told us about the exams a few days ago. Hinata confirmed. She wasn't surprised to see that Shikamaru was still lazy as ever, although it did make her giggle a little at his attitude. Nothing ever did seem to interest the lazy Nara. Shino, Fu, and I are definitely going to rock this Chunin exam. I'm telling you, it'll be a piece of cake. Kiba boasted proudly. Shino shifted slightly at suddenly being placed in the spotlight and even Fu seemed to laugh awkwardly. Kiba, it's not good to be so overconfident. There's bound to be a lot of strong shinobi from other villages. Fu said, hoping to bring her teammate out of his fantasy world. He was way too overconfident about his strength. But she couldn't blame him though. Her life in Konohagakure no Sato was a lot different than Takigakure. People were actually nice to her and spoke to her with affection, which had initially surprised her. It was only later that she realized that most of the people in the village did not know that she was a Jinchuriki. The genins were shielded from the harsh reality of the shinobi world and as such some of them overestimated their own strength. She had never spoken to anyone about her life in Takigakure and kept those memories suppressed. It always pained her to think about those times. However, she was also glad to have been saved from that hell and to meet her new friends in Konoha. However, she was a little saddened that she never got the chance to meet Naruto Namikaze. The tales of his victory in Takigakure and the fact that he was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi had shocked her greatly. She believed him to be the only person who could probably sympathize with her. Fu is correct, Kiba. Logic dictates that if Konoha trained their genins to better improve their skills, so would have the other villagers. And without knowing the extent of other shinobi's abilities, we can't estimate our own accurately. Shino stated quietly. Kiba immediately lowered his head upon hearing what his teammates had to say. Fu and Shino always berated him for his carefree and confident attitude. He never understood what was wrong with that. Fu patted Kiba's pack affectionately on seeing his downcast look. But, aren't you scared even a little? The genins from other villages look a little scary. Choji said a little warily as he glanced around himself. While he was a little surer of his abilities now, he couldn't help but feel intimidated by the shinobi from Kumogakure and Sunagakure, especially the red-haired shinobi. That person just seemed to give him bad vibes. I'm sure, we'll be able to manage, Choji-kun. Hinata replied with a sweet smile. Sasuke quietly stood at the side as the rookie genin squads from Konoha indulged in further talks amongst themselves. He wasn't interested in any of those silly talks. Out of all the genins from Konoha that he knew of, he was only wary of Hinata, Fu, Shikamaru, and Lee, whom he only met today. Fu always gave him a sort of similar feeling to Naruto. He could tell that the girl had an enormous reserves of chakra and he couldn't really figure out why. He then looked around the room, hoping to see if he found anyone else interesting enough. You guys are making too much noise. A voice called out and the Konoha genins immediately turned their attention towards the source. A Konoha shinobi with ash-gray hair and black-rimmed circular glasses walked up to them with a smirk on his face. He wore a dark purple shirt with high collar, a white undershirt and dark purple pants with a white cloth waistband. Who are you? Shikamaru asked as he narrowed his eyes at the genin. The shinobi looked relatively older to be still a genin and Shikamaru couldn't really specify, but something about the shinobi did not feel right. Oh, where are my manners? I'm Kabuto Yakushi. Look around you, all the other teams are staring at your group. The Chunin exams are no joke and you should take it more seriously. Kabuto said with a rather jovial smile. The rookie genins finally looked around themselves and noticed the intimidating gazes of several squads on themselves. So, what? It doesn't really matter. Let them look. Sasuke commented out loud. Aren't you a little worried? I took the exams 3 times and have sadly failed every time. This is my 4th attempt in the Chunin exams. It's not as easy as it sounds. Kabuto advised. Most of the people in the room were highly surprised on hearing that fact. Ha, you must really suck then. Kiba stated with a laugh. He walked towards the man and looked him over. You don't look that strong. No wonder you couldn't pass the exams earlier. Kiba said with smirk. Fu and Shino merely shook their heads. Their teammate did not know when to shut his mouth. You must have some experience at this then. Which village do you think we should be most wary about? Shikamaru questioned to find out some much-needed information about the competition. Kabuto blatantly ignored Kiba, who had a prideful smirk and looked towards Shikamaru. He took out a few cards from his pocket and looked over them momentarily. This year, there are 4 more villages taking part in the Chunin exams: Kyumogakure no Sato, Sunagakure no Sato, Otogakure no Sato and Amigakure. I would suggest staying clear of Kyumo and Suna Shinobi. I have heard that the genins representing those villages have embarked upon some dangerous missions and come out unscathed. Otogakure is a relatively new village, so I don't think the genins would be that hard to defeat. Kabuto stated. As soon as he said that, a kunai quickly grazed past his ears that made him stumble back. Most of the genins in the room immediately turned their attention to the person who had thrown the kunai. A shinobi adorning the headband with the symbol of Otogakure stepped forward with a devious look on his face. Don't underestimate the shinobi from Otogakure, dumb idiot. Stated a shinobi with bandages covering most of his face, leaving only his left eye uncovered. Hinata had immediately moved towards Kabuto, who had fallen on the ground. Looking over his ears, she gasped on seeing that it was bleeding heavily. How did that happen? It looked like the kunai only grazed past your ears. Hinata questioned with concern. Don't worry about it. Thank you for your concern though. Kabuto replied with a painful smile. He then proceeded to cover his left hand in green-colored chakra and healed the wound on his ear. Hinata was surprised to know that Kabuto was proficient in medical ninjutsu. But it also made her slightly suspicious. The ease with which he performed medical ninjutsu seemed to be extremely proficient for someone who claimed to have failed the Chunin exams 3 times. And she wasn't the only one, even Shikamaru and Sakura seemed to be skeptical of Kabuto. The tension around the room was almost palpable as the Otogakure genin leaked a lot of killing intent to solidify his claim. However, before anything further could happen, the proctor soon arrived in the room via Shunshin. Quiet down, you brats, stated the Konoha Jounin firmly. He had a large, imposing figure which complemented his rugged head and face, which was covered with old wounds and scars. His head was covered by the forehead protector to conceal a collection of burn marks and punctures that he received during his past missions. His face showed 2 long parallel slash marks that ran diagonally, from top left to bottom right. He also wore a long black trench coat. My name is Ibiki Marino and I'll be the proctor for the first exam. Shut your mouths and take your seats immediately. Ibiki stated out loud as he leaked his own killing intent. All the genins in the room quickly shuffled around and took their assigned seats. The strict look on Ibiki's face intimidated majority of the genins, while some like Gaara, Sasuke, the ones from Otogakure and even few from Kyumogakure had comparatively normal look on their faces. Once everyone was seated, Ibiki proceeded to walk to each desk and hand out papers consisting of 9 questions. Now, let me explain the rules of the first part. It will be a written test. The paper in front of you has 9 questions which you will have to answer in 45 minutes. Once done, you will be asked the 10th and final question. If you get caught cheating, you will be disqualified. Moreover, if even one member of a squad is caught cheating, the entire team will be disqualified too. The 10th question will have its own set of rules which will be explained at the end of 45 minutes. Is everyone clear? Questioned Ibiki. Even though some wanted to question the man, they kept their mouth shut on noticing the harsh look on the proctor's face. That's what I though. Begin. Ibiki yelled. As the minutes quickly ticked away, most of the genin seemed to cringe at the sort of questions that was asked on the paper. Most of it appeared to be way above what they were taught or knew of. While some of the genins knew the answers to all the questions, the others had to resort to finding the answers from someone else. Gaara had discreetly made an eye out of sand that was looking over the answers from a genin beside him. Shino utilized one of his insects, while Sasuke and Hinata used their Jujutsu to find out the answers to the questions they didn't know. Ibiki casually walked around the classroom to check if anyone was cheating and smirked when he found his target. An Amigakure genin was blatantly glancing back towards his teammate to obtain answers and did not even attempt to be discreet about his doings. You think you're smart? Ibiki said as he stood beside the Amigakure genin. The person immediately started sweating and turned around to look at the proctor fearfully. Before the genin could even say anything, Ibiki pulled him aside. You're disqualified. Pack up and leave with your team. Ibiki stated, and the genin's entire squad was promptly shown their way out. As half an hour passed by, 3 more teams were disqualified from the Chunin exams upon being caught. None of them were given any chance to explain themselves and were simply thrown out of the room. Kiba frantically looked at his paper, which was still empty of any answers. He didn't know the answers to any of the questions and couldn't even look around in fear of having his team disqualified if he got caught cheating. He was suddenly brought out of his internal musings when he noticed a wrinkled piece of paper fall below his feet. Carefully picking it up, his eyes widened on seeing that the piece of paper had all the answers. Looking to his left from where he guessed the paper was thrown from, he saw that it was Fu who had passed him the sheet, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Making sure to keep the sheet of paper hidden, Kiba proceeded to copy all the answers as quickly as he could. Ibiki smirked internally when he noticed how hard the Inuzuka was trying to cover the sheet of paper. At least the kid knows to be discreet. Ibiki thought with a chuckle. Alright, pencils down. Ibiki announced loudly once the 45 minutes had passed by. He looked around once more to make sure no one else was still writing. Once satisfied, he cleared his throat to speak again. If anyone wants to leave now, you can. If you leave without attempting the 10th question, your team will be allowed to retake the Chunin exams next time. However, if you attempt the 10th question and get it wrong, you won't ever be allowed to retake the exams again. The choice is yours. What kind of question is that? Kankuro yelled in annoyance. He was hard-pressed in attempting to get all the answers for the first 9 questions. And the rules were just getting weirder by the second. The rules are what it is. They won't be changing. The decision is yours. Ibiki replied, staring at the Suna Genin intensely. Kankuro immediately shut up as Ibiki's glare fell on him. Man, that guy gives me the creep. Kankuro thought awkwardly. A couple of minutes later, 4 more teams got up and left the room quietly, afraid that they might answer the final question incorrectly and risk their careers as shinobi. HMH. As if something like this is enough to scare me. I am definitely going to take the 10th question. Kiba said out loud, trying to keep a brave face. But, underneath all that bravado, he was kind of worried. He just did not want to appear weak in front of shinobi from other villages. He was an Inuzuka and they were a proud clan, after all. Quite confident, are we? Ibiki asked as he shifted his focus to Kiba. Ibiki was mildly impressed that Kiba managed to keep a straight face even as he stared at the Inuzuka intently. Sasuke, Hinata, and Sakura glanced at each other and nodded. Without any words, they agreed to take the final question too. The 3 of them had gone through a lot together and a simple question wasn't going to decide their fate. As a few more minutes passed, Ibiki noticed that the remaining genins were adamant about attempting the final question. His expression softened slightly as he sighed. Guess, there's no helping it. He thought. Alright then, you all pass. Congratulated Ibiki. It took about a minute for the genins to register the words as they looked at the proctor with perplexed looks. How? Asked one of the genins, wearing the Kumogakure forehead protector. Similar question was also racing through the minds of other genins. It appears some of you are not as smart as I thought. Anyhow, let me explain. When I asked if you were ready to take the final question, that in fact was the 10th question. When you become Chunin, there will be times when you'll be asked to lead missions and you'll come across many uncertainties. The 10th question was to check your resolve. If you are mentally strong enough to continue a mission or instead chose to leave because the situation became too rough for you to handle. And it seems, those of you who chose to stay did indeed believe in yourself. Ibiki explained briefly. Several of the genins were amazed at the ingenuity of the question and now relaxed somewhat, knowing that they had passed the first hurdle. However, before Ibiki could say anything further, the window to his right suddenly broke and a purple-haired woman wearing quite revealing clothes stood beside Ibiki. He shook his head and merely sighed at the woman's antics. Always too early, Anko, at least let me finish. Ibiki said to her. That only prompted Anko to give a cheeky smile. She looked around the room and was surprised at the number of people that Ibiki had passed. Several of the boys drooled at the sight of Anko, who was only wearing fishnets under her trench coat, and the girls seemed to be slightly irked at the indecency of the woman. You've grown soft, Ibiki. You've sure passed a hefty number of students. Anko commented. Ibiki couldn't disagree with her. Even he was quite shocked. I guess the genins are just good this year. They might surprise you too, Anko. Ibiki replied. Oh, we'll see about that. But, I'm sure by the time I'm done with them, the number will have reduced in half. Anko stated with a smirk. Some of the genins stared at the purple-haired woman in shock upon hearing her claim. That only proved to make them wonder and worry as to what the next part of the Chunin exam would be like. Alright kids, everyone has to report at Training Ground 44 in half an hour. Anyone who comes late will be immediately disqualified. Now, hurry up. Anko stated out loud, and the next second, she seemingly disappeared from view. Man, that lady was hot as hell. Kankuro couldn't help but blurt it out as soon as Anko left the room. Several other male genins unknowingly nodded to that comment. Temari sent a dirty glare towards her brother that made him back away slightly. Anyhow, a few minutes later, they all quickly got up from their seats and left the room and proceeded to move towards Training Ground 44. As Naruto, Kakashi, and the other Jounin sensei of Konoha Genin squads walked to the entrance of Training Ground 44, Naruto stopped abruptly when he felt that vile chakra. He narrowed his eyes as he realized who it belonged to. He would never forget the pain that person had made him go through. What's wrong, Naruto? Kakashi asked suddenly on seeing Naruto's face turn blank. However, the blonde simply rushed ahead, intent on finding out who Orochimaru was disguising himself as. Naruto was certain that Orochimaru wouldn't just openly walk into the village, and plus, he was curious as to what made Naruto uneasy. Kakashi also quickly followed him. He had noticed the momentary look of rage on Naruto's face, and that alone had alarmed him. Even Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy were curious as to what had happened suddenly and decided to follow their fellow Jounins. The rookie Genin squads and the other Genin squads from Konoha had arrived at the entrance of Training Ground 44 after about 15 minutes of walk from the Konoha Academy. Even the Genins from Kyumogakure, Sunagakure, Otogakure, and the 2 remaining Genin squads from Amagakure had arrived and were waiting for the proctor to give further instructions for the second part. What do you think the second part will be like? Ibiki-san sure made the written exam seem very stressful. Sakura stated. Beats me. I assume it will be more practical and definitely harder than the first exam. Shikamaru replied with a yawn. He had pretty much slept through the written part, and it was only in the last 10 minutes or so that he answered the questions that he knew of. However, he knew he was a tad bit lucky to have gotten through the first part. Even Shino and Sasuke nodded, agreeing with the Nara. That forest just seems a little too scary for my taste. I just hope the second part gets over soon too. Choji stated. He had already finished through all the food he had and was starting to get hungry again. Ino got a little ticked off at Choji's constant hunger and just turned to move beside Sasuke, much to his displeasure. While most of the Genins talked among themselves, there was one Amagakure Genin who quietly stood at the back and kept her eyes focused on the Uchiha. Hinata looked around herself, seeing which all teams actually remained, and when her gaze fell upon that Amagakure Genin at the back, a cold shiver ran up her spine on seeing the look at that shinobi's eye. Unbeknownst to the Genins, Anko was sitting atop a tall tree by the entrance of the Training Ground 44. She gazed over at the Genins and chuckled at how calm most of them appeared. All of that would soon change in a matter of few minutes. Oh, I can't wait to have fun with these little ones. She thought with a sadistic laugh. She promptly jumped off the tree and landed in front of the group of Genins as she made her presence known to them. Welcome to my home. Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. Anko stated out loud, a little too cheerfully. Most of the teams immediately fell quiet on hearing the name. For the second part of the Chunin exams, each team will be given a heaven, or an earth scroll. Once all the teams enter the forest, you'll have 5 days to collect the other scroll and report to the building on the far north of the forest. Although, it is frowned upon, killing an opponent during the exam is allowed. Also, if you open the scroll before reporting to the building, you will be disqualified. Anko gave a brief detail. As she expected, most of the participants now seemed to be a little afraid at the prospect of spending 5 days within that forest. Sensing the fear from so many Genins, honestly filled her with glee. She was truly going to have a spectacular time seeing all these Genins struggle. Oh, man. What if we end up dying accidentally? And considering Reikage-sama's temper, he wages war on Konoha. And then because 2 of the Great 5 villages start a war, it could possibly spark the 4th Great Shinobi War. Murmured a dark-skinned Kyumo ninja with white hair. His mind kept popping up these impossible scenarios that kept making him tense up with every passing second. Oh, shut up, Omoi. It's your habit to overthink stuff. Do you have that little faith in your abilities? And these Konoha Genins don't look that strong anyway. A dark-skinned kunoichi with long spiky red hair berated her teammate. I seriously mean it, Karui. Think about it. Omoi replied as he slightly shifted in his spot. He couldn't help but think about all these scenarios. Their third teammate, Samui, sighed at Karui and Omoi's constant bickering. The two were always arguing with each other and never gave it a moment's rest. Unlike her teammates, she was an extremely reserved person and only spoke when it was necessary. She also doubted if the other genins were as weak as Karui thought them to be. The Uchiha and the Hyuga clan were known throughout the shinobi world and could not be underestimated at all. Moreover, the red-haired shinobi from Sunagakure and the Aim Kunoichi made her feel uneasy. Though it wasn't much, she could feel the bloodlust radiating from the red-haired Suna shinobi. But, what will we do about food and water? Choji suddenly asked with shock written on his face. He had never gone so long without eating anything. Oh, don't worry about that. There are a lot of wild animals inside the forest. You could just kill and eat them if you so desire. Anko replied with a smirk. Even the group from Kumogakure were a little uncomfortable on seeing the sick smile on Anko's face. As she looked around once more, her eyes fell on the Uchiha who had a confident look on his face, and she was even surprised not to feel any sort of fear from the genin. Swiftly taking out a kunai, she expertly threw it towards him. Sasuke merely sidestepped the thrown kunai but was surprised when Anko was suddenly standing behind him. You seem to be awfully confident. Doesn't the forest scare you? Anko whispered into his ears as she snaked her arms over his shoulders. However, Sasuke remained indifferent to her actions and sported a blank face now. I have been through much worse to let something like death scare me. Sasuke replied to her flatly. Anko merely smirked at the response. She suddenly turned around when she felt someone tap her on the shoulders. She noticed that it was an Amigakure Kunoichi with waist-long black hair who was holding a kunai in her hand. You dropped this, Proctor-san. The Kunoichi stated with a smile that looked to be disturbing to many around. I must be getting rusty, if a genin got a drop on me like that. Anko thought dumbly as she simply took her kunai and moved back to the front of the group. Something doesn't feel right about that Kunoichi. Hinata whispered to Sasuke and Sakura. The two of them also nodded slightly. You're right. She feels strange. Sakura replied, wary of the Aim Kunoichi. Before Anko could proceed further with anything, she was surprised when Naruto and Kakashi suddenly appeared beside her, followed by Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy. Oi! What are you doing here? Anko questioned looking towards the Namikes. Even the Kyumo and Oto genins were surprised on seeing the famous Shiroi Shinigami they had heard so much about. Naruto completely ignored Anko and looked over the group of genins with narrowed eyes. He was certain one of them was Orochimaru as he had sensed his chakra just outside the Forest of Death. Anko's eyebrow twitched in annoyance at not getting a reply. Even Asuma, Guy, and Kurenai were confused at this point. Anko moved towards Naruto to question him about appearing in the middle of her exam, when Kakashi suddenly moved in front of her to block her path. Anko, let it be. This won't take long. Kakashi stated with complete seriousness. She was slightly taken aback by the look on Kakashi's face and decided to wait for a few minutes. She had known the white-haired Jounin since childhood and there were very few times when he was this serious. Naruto narrowed his eyes dangerously when his gaze fell upon the Amigakure Kunoichi who was standing at the back. The said Kunoichi also stared at Naruto without as much an emotion on her face. And Naruto knew he had found his prey. However, he was surprised to sense that Orochimaru's chakra felt slightly different than what he remembered. It felt much stronger and potent to be precise. He thought for a second about what to do about him. He could just kill him, but then he wouldn't know the reason as to why Orochimaru came to Konoha and most importantly how the Sannin even managed to remove his chakra rods. It shouldn't have been possible for Orochimaru to remove it himself or make someone else do it. Kakashi-sensei, let's go. There's no need to worry. Naruto stated calmly as he immediately turned around. With one look at the blonde's face, Kakashi understood the underlying meaning. Kakashi glanced towards his fellow Jounin sensei, and the two immediately shined out of the area. The other three Konoha Jounin sensei quickly wished their respective team good luck before they too took their leave. Whatever the case was, they knew Naruto must have sensed something. I wonder why Naruto-kun showed up like that. Thought Hinata. She too had noticed the look on the blonde's face and was certain there was something wrong. Her team would need to be careful the next few days. I'll need to be cautious. For sure, he knows about me. Well, it's not like I wasn't expecting him not to find out. Still, all I need is a few seconds with young Sasuke-kun. Thought Orochimaru who was disguised as the Aim Kunoichi. Shortly after that, Anko made all the genins sign a form stating that if they were to die in the middle of this exam, Konohagakure would not be held responsible for their death. Each of the team was then handed a single heaven or earth scroll to carry with themselves and then asked to wait in front of their assigned gates. Do you have any plan as to how we should proceed? Hinata questioned. Team 7 was given a heaven scroll and it was Hinata who had it with her. We have a maximum of 5 days to get an earth scroll from another team. I suggest we look for a team as soon as we enter and apprehend them. Sasuke said. But, there's also a good chance that the team we encounter may not have the scroll we are looking for. Sakura replied. Remember what the proctor said? Half of us will be eliminated by the end of this exam anyway. And any team that does not have both the scrolls will not qualify. So, it doesn't matter if we have more heaven or earth scrolls. We just need one of each at the least. Sasuke stated logically. Hinata pondered over the matter again. Sasuke had some valid points, and if their team did follow his plan, they could easily weed out the competition for the third part of the Chunin exams. But, if they got into a lot of fights, all of them might become too tired for the next part if it's held right after. How about we scout the other teams for the first day and find out which team has an earth scroll? That way we only need to fight one team, and once we get the earth scroll, we can head for the building immediately. Hinata suggested an alternative. Everyone suddenly stopped talking as the alarm rang loudly and the gate in front of them opened up. Guess, we are going with your idea, Hinata. Sakura said with slight nervous. Sasuke also ended up agreeing as the idea did seem to have benefits. They would need to conserve their strength as much as they can. Few seconds later, Team 7 rushed inside the forests and so did the other teams who were waiting by the other gates. With Naruto, Kakashi and other jounins. So, what did you manage to find? Asuma asked straightforward. If there were a matter bothering Naruto, it must be something serious. I believe, Orochimaru has infiltrated the village and is disguising himself as one of the genins, to be more precise an Amegekure Kunoichi. Naruto revealed. As soon as Naruto said those words, the other jounins became highly cautious on hearing that news. Are you sure, Naruto-kun? Guy posed the question. And for once, the people were surprised on hearing the seriousness behind his voice. I'm positive. I would never forget his chakra signature. But what concerns me is how he managed to sneak inside the village despite the security that we have in place. I only sensed his chakra a while back, meaning it hasn't even been half an hour since he came into the village. Naruto said. Kakashi got into a thinking pose as his mind raced through the different possibilities. It was only known to a handful of people in the village that Orochimaru worked with Danzo in the past. However, it has been 4 years since the elder had defected the village and they had no new information about him. So, he couldn't even positively say that Danzo is involved right now. But he also couldn't rule out the possibility. Glancing towards the blonde, Kakashi was sure there was another matter which was bugging Naruto. That is troubling indeed. Orochimaru is not someone who can be taken lightly. But I still wonder why he even came to the village. I can't think of anything that may interest him. Asuma thought out loud. The fact that Kakashi and Naruto had fought against Orochimaru in Takigakure was still unknown to the jounins, and only Minato, Jiraiya and Shikaka knew of this in the village. While Kakashi had a small inkling as to what Orochimaru could be after, he wasn't entirely sure about it. Just after the Third Shinobi War had ended, Kakashi and his Umbu squad had once apprehended Orochimaru outside one of his laboratories. He had barely managed to escape at that point, but his team was successful in retrieving some of the documents in the lab. Orochimaru's obsession with the Shodame Hokage's cell and the Sharingan was quite sickening. Asuma, Guy, Kurenai, how about you guys check with the squad stationed near the gate and then meet with us at the Jounin's lounge. Naruto and I will go speak with Hokage-sama in the meantime. It's a matter of village security if Orochimaru has managed to sneak in without anyone else knowing. Kakashi said. What about our teams? I don't think any one of them can take on a Sannin. Kurenai voiced her concern. She was extremely worried about her team at this point. They were good, but certainly none of them were strong enough to even fight a Jounin head-on, much less a Sannin for that matter. Naruto glanced towards the black-haired Kunoichi and knew she had a point. I'll go into the forest and look out for Orochimaru, myself. I'll deal with him if the need arises. Kakashi-sensei, you and Guy should go to Tusan and inform him about this immediately. Naruto suggested as he turned towards his sensei. Asuma, Kurenai and Kakashi agreed to that readily. They were sure nothing would happen to their team if Naruto was the one watching over them. Soon enough, Asuma and Kurenai scattered to check with the Jounins at each gate. Even Naruto was about to leave when he suddenly heard Guy's voice. Naruto-kun, I'm not doubting your abilities in any way. But I have heard about your tendencies to go overboard when fighting the enemy. I just need you to realize that my students are not expendable and should not be harmed in any way. It won't be very youthful otherwise. Guy stated firmly, surprising Naruto and even Kakashi greatly. Naruto was slightly taken aback by that unsaid threat. But he could understand where Guy was coming from. Majority of the people considered Guy to be a fool because of his immature attitude. But, behind that mask of foolishness was a deadly shinobi whom even Naruto respected and admired, someone who had pushed through all the obstacles life had thrown at him and come out on top whilst still remaining lively on the outside. Not many shinobi could still claim to remain sane after being in World War. You have my word, Guy. So long as I breath, none of your genins will even be scratched by Orochimaru. Naruto replied sincerely. The blonde was surprised when the very next second, Guy's posture flipped completely. Yosh, Naruto-kun. Now, let's leave and let the flames of our youth spread like an untamed wildfire. Guy yelled enthusiastically and gave a wide toothy smile along with a thumbs up. Naruto and Kakashi laughed awkwardly and shook their head at the sight of Guy. Of course, the green-clad Jounin had to say something like that. Soon enough, the three of them disappeared, while Naruto moved into the Forest of Death. Kakashi and Guy walked towards the Hokage's building. Next day afternoon, Forest of Death. Sasuke, Hinata, and Sakura were currently resting under a tall tree exhausted from all the running the previous day. Their first day in the Forest of Death wasn't minutely what they had expected it to be. The forest was filled with numerous large wild animals, snakes, bears and even insects for that matter. A good part of the evening was spent by them in fighting the large bears and snakes that roamed in the area, for food. Since none of them had any sleeping bags on them, they had to construct makeshift sleeping mats with the large tree branches and leaves they had collected at night. The most essential was the food. Since Sasuke and Hinata hadn't a clue as to what plant was poisonous or not, Sakura was the one who had gathered several herbs and apples that grew in the area. The three had eventually agreed upon that if the third part of the Chunin exams might end up being held immediately at the end of the fifth day, they would need to conserve as much chakra and stamina as they could. Team 7 had set a small camp beside the river that flew through the Forest of Death. While Hinata had spent the first day helping Sakura with collecting firewood, food, and water, Sasuke had spent the day setting up various traps around their base along with scouting the surrounding area within a 2-mile radius. During that time, Sasuke had come across Team 10 from Konoha, the genins from Amigakure and Kabuto's squad. He had managed to keep his presence discreet but was unable to find which of those teams had an earth scroll. We should move out now, Hinata stated, getting up from the ground. All of them were rested and ready to fight. We should head northwest from here. I noticed the building where we are supposed to report in that direction. If we travel towards there, we are bound to come across a team which has an earth scroll. Sasuke said as he too packed up all of his belongings. Sakura, you should stay at the back. You are the medic in our team. Only fight when it's completely necessary, okay? Sasuke added. The pink-haired girl quietly nodded. She knew Sasuke and Hinata were much stronger than her and she may only end up adding more trouble. But she wasn't going to complain about anything. Although it did hurt her a little that Sasuke did not think too high of her skills as a shinobi. I'll be in the front and look out with my Byakugan. Hinata chipped in. A few minutes later, the three of them promptly left the area and began moving northwest. About half an hour had passed since Team 7 had been on the move when they heard a horrific scream echo throughout the forest. They suddenly stopped on their tracks and looked around themselves in slight alarm. It sounded like it came from the west. Do you want to go check? Sakura asked meekly. Hinata once again looked around themselves with her Byakugan. I don't see anyone around us. Plus, I don't think it would be wise. Before the Chunin exams, Naruto-kun and I had come across the genins from Sunagakure and the red-haired one seemed highly unstable for some reason. We should try to avoid that team for the time being. Hinata suggested. The three once again went on the move and it wasn't until an hour later that they were stopped by a team from Amigakure. The three narrowed their eyes when they saw the sickly-looking Kunoichi from earlier among them. Oh, if it isn't the Uchiha and the Hyuga, stated a genin with a smirk as he stepped forward. Hand us your scroll right now, he said firmly. You could try, but I don't think you'll succeed. Sasuke replied and rushed towards the genin at high speed. Hinata too rushed behind Sasuke to aid him in the fight. Instead of following her teammates, Sakura ran to the top of the nearby tree that hid her vision from the ground. Making a single bunshin, Sakura's clone jumped from the tree to appear beside Hinata. What a bunch of idiots. The AIM genin commented under his breath. Once the three Konoha genins reached within a feet of him, the AIM genin suddenly took out a smoke bomb and threw it on the ground. As the area got shrouded in smoke, Sasuke immediately stopped his movements and activated his Sharingan. Since Hinata was able to see through the smoke clearly due to her Byakugan, she stood right behind Sasuke to cover his back while Sakura's clone stood at the far end inside the smoke screen. The main purpose of the bunshin was to make the Amigakure genins believe that they had trapped the three of them effectively inside the smoke screen. Sasuke, from your right, Hinata warned. Sasuke immediately sidestepped the kunai and threw several shurikens coated with Raitun chakra in the general direction from where the kunais were thrown from. He smirked when he heard the clattering sound of the shurikens being deflected. Sasuke glanced towards Hinata and she nodded. Placing her palms on the ground, Hinata expelled several lightning bolts through the ground, which traveled to their right in a matter of a second. However, both frowned when they did not hear any sound in return. This time, Hinata had to jump high up to avoid being hit from several kunais, and Sasuke quickly deflected all of them as she landed beside him. Sakura's clone was dispelled the next second as she was hit by one of the shurikens thrown. She should be done soon, Hinata whispered. Sasuke nodded, as he understood what Sakura was up to. While Sasuke and Hinata were still inside the smokescreen, Sakura had expertly hidden herself on a tall tree and had a better view of the surrounding below. She noticed while two of the genins were throwing kunais and shurikens into the smokescreen, the kunoichi was calmly waiting at the side. For an unknown reason, every cell in her body screamed at her to not engage that kunoichi. She quickly made a few hand seals and casted a genjutsu on the area. Since both her teammates had dojutsu, they would be fine. Megan, Kokoni Arezu no Jutsu, Sakura muttered under her breath. Soon enough, as the genjutsu took effect on the area surrounding the Amigakure genins, the two who were throwing weapons into the smokescreen suddenly saw the bodies of her, Sasuke and Hinata, lying on the ground with kunais lodged into them. Sakura smirked when the two genins eased up and laughed on seeing the result. The pink-haired girl quietly crept down the tree and threw a stone inside the smoke screen, which was now beginning to fade lightly. Sasuke and Hinata, who were unaffected by the genjutsu, heard a stone fall beside them. As soon as they got the signal, Hinata quickly pinpointed the location of the two genins who were standing on two opposite directions of them. Conveying the message to Sasuke, the two of them launched themselves on the unsuspecting Amigakure genins, disabled them with a quick jab to their jugular. By now, the smoke screen had mostly faded away. However, both Sasuke and Hinata frowned on finding out that none of them had the scroll. Sasuke-kun, Hinata, the third member, is still standing at the side. I don't why, but she did not seem interested in helping out her teammates. Sakura told as she rejoined with her team. The two Amigakure genins had their hands and legs tied up to disable them from making any hand seals or allow any movement. Believing that the AIM kunoichi was also under the effect of Sakura's genjutsu, the three of them moved towards her quietly. However, they stopped in their track when the kunoichi suddenly turned towards them with a dark smile on her face. Oh, how wonderful to see you three working together in such synchronization. Truly amazing, commented the kunoichi. Looking for this area, are you? She said with a laugh as she took out the earth scroll from her pouch and hung it in front of her face. It's 3 against 1. Give us the scroll and we'll not harm you, Sasuke stated out loud. He gripped his katana tightly as the AIM kunoichi got into a thinking pose. Even Hinata and Sakura were on high alert. Judging by the calm look on the kunoichi's face, they knew she must have a trick up her sleeve. The AIM kunoichi quickly took out 2 kunais and threw it towards her teammates who were tied up, and instantly killed them without so much as a look. What are you doing? They were your teammates, Sakura yelled, appalled by what the kunoichi had done. Oh, first let me test you out, those eyes of yours, she stated as the 3 Konoha genins viewed her perplexedly. The AIM kunoichi suddenly released a large amount of chakra and killing intent that weighed heavily upon the genins of Team 7. Sasuke, Hinata, and Sakura merely stood rooted in their place, unable to move even a single muscle. The sheer pressure of the chakra and the killing intent they were feeling from the kunoichi before them was unreal. The killing intent they sensed from Zabuza seemed like a child compared to what they were feeling now. The 3 began to sweat heavily upon sensing their demise right before their eyes. If you can't even overcome this, I expected much more, you, young Sasuke-kun, the kunoichi stated with a shake of her head. What is this? This is no normal genin. The 3 of them thought simultaneously. Their eyes widened when the kunoichi started walking towards them. They cursed as how much ever they tried to move, they simply were not able to. Tears fell from Sakura's eyes as she believed this was the end for her. Hinata tried to keep herself calm and began racking her brain to deviate her fear and suddenly held her kunai close to her thigh. Sasuke too reciprocated Hinata's actions and the two genins stabbed themselves in the leg to get out of the trance. Oh. Maybe you two do have some fight. The approaching kunoichi stated with interest. Hinata quickly shook Sakura's shoulders and brought her out of her daze. The three of them then quickly jumped back to gain some distance. Who are you? Hinata questioned fearfully as she held her kunai tightly. The AIM kunoichi smirked at the girl's bravery. However, she simply ignored her and turned her gaze towards Sasuke, who was still trying to calm himself. Don't you want to know the truth about the Uchiha clan's massacre? The truth that the Hokage and even your dear mother and brother have been hiding from you? The kunoichi asked with an evil glint in her eyes. Sasuke suddenly grew out of his shock and looked at the kunoichi in confusion and anger. With every passing second, his eyes widened in fear. He didn't know who the kunoichi was or what the person was talking about, but he found himself interested to know what she was talking about. However, before anyone else could say anything further, another presence suddenly landed between Team 7 and the AIM kunoichi. How nice of you to join us, Naruto-kun, stated the AIM kunoichi gleefully. All of you, get out of here as soon as possible. This is not someone you can hope to defeat right now, Naruto announced calmly. Much to his surprise, Orochimaru had managed to hide his chakra signature completely. But he had managed to find him yesterday after a few hours of searching and had been following the Sannin ever since. He had waited up till now to make his presence known so he could find out a little about Orochimaru's goals in Konoha. No. I want to listen to what she has to say, Sasuke yelled back stubbornly. He didn't want to believe that the Hokage and his mother were hiding something from him, but he couldn't help but want to listen to the entire story. This isn't the time, Sasuke. As a jounin, I'm ordering you to leave, Naruto firmly said as he slightly turned around and glanced at his brethren with his lone Rinnegan. Even Hinata and Sakura were surprised on seeing the look in Naruto's eyes. Sasuke-kun, let's get out of here. Naruto is right, Sakura urged. Even though she was surprised by the AIM kunoichi's words, she understood that this wasn't the situation for them to stay over here. Even Hinata hesitantly stepped forward but stopped on realizing the situation they were in. After a few minutes of persuasion, Sasuke finally agreed to leave begrudgingly. As Team 7 turned around and were leaving the area, all of them clearly heard the name of the shinobi that had apprehended them and were thoroughly surprised on knowing the identity. Sasuke glanced back for a second but kept on running away from the area. Unknown to Naruto, a small white snake slithered down the AIM kunoichi's long pants and went into the ground to follow the genins of Team 7. You made a big mistake coming back to the village, Orochimaru, Naruto said with a sigh. I don't know what interest you have in Sasuke or what you had planned, but I assure you, I will kill you today, Naruto stated dangerously. The AIM kunoichi in front of Naruto slowly changed her appearance as Orochimaru eventually revealed his true face. You sure do like to repeat yourself a lot, Naruto-kun, chuckled Orochimaru as he readied himself. After his last fight with the blonde, Orochimaru was rendered immobile for several weeks in excruciating pain and begrudgingly had to request one of his former acquaintance for help. Although the business had costed him greatly, he was able to acquire 4 new bodies for himself that were made entirely of Hashirama Senju's cells. After months of experimentation on the so-called White Zetsu, he had managed to create a perfect body for himself. Now, all he needed was the Sharingan to get him one step closer to his goal. Making the first move, Naruto unsheathed his Chikudo and lunged towards Orochimaru in a blink of an eye. Quickly turning behind, Orochimaru parried Naruto's Chikudo and aimed a knee to the blonde's stomach. Flipping on top of the Sannin and appearing behind, Naruto gave a roundhouse kick to Orochimaru's head. A sickening sound echoed through the area as Naruto's foot contacted the Sannin's face and he was flung to the side like a rag doll. Naruto patiently waited in his spot as he saw the Sannin get up on one knee. He was disgusted at the sight of Orochimaru just pushing his distorted neck back in its place. That kind hurt, Orochimaru replied as he finally got up. Making a few hand seals, Orochimaru gathered a large amount of chakra. Futon, Kaze Kujo Hibi, holding the snake hand seal, the Sannin took a second to build up the futon chakra around himself. Once finished, he released the snake seal as the futon chakra gathered around him to take the form of a large serpent about 15 meters long. Guiding his hand towards Naruto, the large serpent swiftly traveled towards the blonde, who stood in his place with a bored look. Naruto simply raised his left arm and absorbed the jutsu as it came close to him. Orochimaru quirked his eyebrow in interest. He had never seen someone to be capable of absorbing chakra so efficiently. Before the Sannin could voice his question, Naruto opened his mouth to speak. So, tell me, how did you manage to remove the chakra rods? No normal shinobi can touch it. Naruto questioned as he sheathed his Chikudo back and folded his arms over the chest. Well. I assumed you must have figured it out by now, Naruto-kun. After all, nothing should escape those eyes of yours. Orochimaru replied with a smirk. Naruto narrowed his eyes at Orochimaru's wordplay, which made the Sannin further smirk. You aren't the only one gifted with those eyes, Naruto-kun. The Sannin added, and his smirk increased even more on noticing the look of disbelief appear on the blonde's face. He had never seen the Rinnegan's full capabilities or could even begin to comprehend it. Like the others, he was familiar with the tale of Rikudo Sannin and how he created the shinobi world with his godlike powers. So, it intrigued him greatly as how two shinobi had the Rinnegan in the same era. He could barely stop himself from drooling in his mind at the prospect of uncovering the secrets behind such a dijitsu. What did you say? Naruto asked as a morbid feeling developed within him. To learn that there was another Rinnegan user in the shinobi world, it had to be impossible. This is not the time to be dwelling on that, Naruto. Kill that snake before he escapes. Kurama urged from within Naruto's mind. He had speculated this scenario earlier but dreaded about the possibility of it being true. Before Orochimaru could capitalize on Naruto's momentary lapse of focus, the blonde suddenly appeared behind the snake Sannin and cut off both his arms effectively. By the time Orochimaru realized what had happened, Naruto even cut off his legs as the Sannin's body fell on the ground with a thud. What? Orochimaru could only whisper for a second, which was then followed by a painful scream. He looked around as he saw his arms and legs just lying on either side of him. He once again screamed in agony as he felt the blonde plant his foot on his chest and look down upon him, as if he was a mere insect. You gravely miscalculated my power, Orochimaru. Naruto sneered as his Rinnegan bore into the Sannin's twisted soul. You may be the greatest scientist the shinobi world has seen, and you may even be a Kage-level shinobi, but all of that is meaningless before my power. So, how about I make you a deal? Naruto stated as he pressed his foot down further. A silent scream escaped the Sannin's lips as he cursed the damn blonde. Even after all the modifications he performed on his body along with adding Hashirama cells, he hated realizing that Naruto was simply toying with him. You piqued my interest when you told me about this unknown Rinnegan user. So, why don't you inform this person that I wish to meet him? Naruto said. Raising a single finger, Naruto formed a ball of fire that radiated intense heat and thrusted it above Orochimaru's heart but made sure to leave the Sannin barely alive and conscious. He could feel a strong potent chakra that composed most of Orochimaru's body and knew he wouldn't die so easily. I will never understand why Jiraiya-sensei did not kill you when he had the chance. Your existence has no meaning whatsoever. Naruto commented as he stepped aside whilst sporting a blank look. Just as the blonde had guessed, Orochimaru opened his mouth to large proportions and crawled out of his own mouth seemingly good as new. Although, doing this took a large toll on his chakra. I see. It seems I was wrong. Orochimaru replied as he coughed up some blood into his hand. What is it you truly desire, Orochimaru? You should know by now, so long as my father and I are in Konoha, you'll never be able to lay a single hand on this village. Naruto said keenly. He genuinely wished to know about the man now. Jiraiya had always diverted the topic when he asked about Orochimaru, and he figured that it must be a sensitive topic for his sensei. Orochimaru had fought for Konoha in the First and Second Shinobi World War beside Jiraiya and Tsunade. He was respected and feared by many for his strength. So, it confused him greatly as to why he would decide to betray the village. Even Orochimaru was mildly surprised on being asked such a question. We both have different philosophies about the shinobi world, Naruto. I simply wish to uncover the fundamental secrets behind chakra, life and death. But, if you so desire, I shall arrange a meeting with that person. Replied Orochimaru as he disappeared in a gust of wind. This just got a whole lot more complicated. I will need to keep an eye on Sasuke from here on and inform Itachi and Mikoto Obasan about this. Naruto thought with a tired sigh. He didn't want to disclose the truth about another Rinnegan user to his father or Jiraiya as of now. It would certainly put them in a frenzy. If possible, he wanted to deal with it on his own. Who knows, he might even be able to persuade the man to work with him. You should have killed him, Naruto. There is no meaning in keeping him alive. Kurama said irritatingly. At this moment, Kurama was worried what Naruto might do if he met the other Rinnegan user. Even he was confused about the matter. It should be impossible for the Rinnegan to have manifested itself in two people. He might prove to be useful in the future, Kurama. If not, his fate rests in my hand anyway. Naruto replied as he too disappeared from the place. Every time Naruto thought of ending that Sanin's life, he was always presented with a tough choice. And it did not please him that Orochimaru ended up surviving yet another time. Later at night with Team 7. After surviving the encounter with that strange-looking Aim Kunoichi that turned out to be a Densetsu no Sannin, Team 7 had rushed away from the area to another part of the forest. A few hours later in the evening, the three had come across yet another team from Amigakure. However, the three Konoha had quite easily defeated the team and luckily this time had managed to find an earth and a heaven scroll from the team. Sasuke, Hinata, and Sakura had merely left the team unconscious and tied them up to trees to avoid much trouble. Currently, the three were about 4 miles east of the building they had to report. They had decided to rest for a while before heading to the building. While Sakura and Hinata were sleeping, Sasuke was deep in thought about what Orochimaru had stated. As far as he knew, the elder, Danzo had killed most of his clan including his father and fled the village after collecting their Sharingan. That was the story which was also known to the village. So, it made him skeptical as to what the Sannin might have been talking about. What was the secret that the Hokage, his mother and even Itachi were keeping from him? It hurt his head even thinking about the possibility that the truth he knew was a fabricated lie. He suddenly slapped his leg when he felt something graze past it. Looking down, he raised his eyebrow upon seeing a small white snake. It was simply slithering beside his leg and hissing. Holding it in his hands, Sasuke stared at the snake keenly. It was different than the ones he had encountered in the forest. However, the snake suddenly lunged towards him and before Sasuke could react, it bit him on the neck. An excruciating amount of pain coursed through his body and he felt himself going numb. Hinata and Sakura promptly woke up as they heard Sasuke's scream. Quickly moving towards him, their eyes widened in horror on seeing him down on the ground as he clutched his neck in agony. A strange black-colored pattern had covered his entire body and glowed dim yellow. Hinata, what the hell is happening to Sasuke? Sakura asked in panic. She crouched and tried to stabilize Sasuke, but she had to immediately move her hand away since his body was burning up. Hinata quickly activated her Byakugan and observed Sasuke's chakra circulatory system. Whatever it is, it seems to be originating from his neck. It looks like a foreign chakra that is intertwining itself with Sasuke's chakra coils. I have no clue what to do. Hinata replied hurriedly. Sasuke was still wriggling around on the ground and screaming in pain. The two girls couldn't even touch their teammate cause of his burning fever. Not able to take it anymore, Sakura resolved herself and covered both her hands with soothing green chakra. She immediately placed her hand on Sasuke's forehead and almost screamed when she felt the burning sensation course through her body. Hinata, quickly get some cold water from somewhere. We need to cool his body as soon as possible. Sakura ordered with gritted teeth. She was trying her best to soothe Sasuke's nerves. While she didn't know how Sasuke got that mark on his neck or what that mark exactly was, she couldn't afford to see him writhe in pain. Following Sakura's orders, Hinata swiftly rushed towards the river that was about half a mile away from their location. As Sakura kept pushing the healing chakra through Sasuke's forehead, she was beginning to tire out cause of the intense heat that his body was radiating. A few minutes later, a morbid feeling developed in her gut, when Sasuke suddenly stopped moving and his body seemed to cool down. She placed her ear on his chest to listen for heartbeat and sighed when she could hear it faintly. Sakura, I got some cold water from the river. Hinata said with heavy breaths but stopped when she noticed Sasuke's still body. Is he? She questioned dreadfully, unable to finish her sentence. No. He just seems to be unconscious right now. But we need to keep moving. We can't stay here any longer. We need to find a safe place to hide and wait for him to wake up. Sakura replied. Seeing Sasuke in such a state had lowered both Hinata and Sakura's morale. Both had noticed that Sasuke was disturbed by what Orochimaru had said to him. Even they were curious but knew it wasn't the right time to pry answers out of him. Help me carry him, will you? Sakura requested as she tried to carry him. Hinata promptly moved beside Sakura and held onto Sasuke from the other side. Let's head close to the building. We have both the scrolls anyway. Maybe we can get some medical help once we complete this part. Hinata suggested. Sakura quietly nodded as the two girls started walking slowly towards the main building. With Orochimaru. Finally, it has begun. The moment draws near. Kukuku. Minato, Naruto, Jiraiya, you won't believe what I have planned for the Chunin exam finals. Orochimaru thought with an evil grin. He was currently in one of his underground layers at the edge of Tsuchi no Kuni. He coughed again violently as some more blood splattered on his hand. Yet again, he cursed the damn blonde and his overwhelming power. It was simply unbelievable that Naruto's power had grown even more since the last time the two had met. But he had been successful in separating the Namikes from Sasuke and his team. Moreover, having associated himself with Akatsuki once again, Orochimaru had more opportunity to research the Rinnegan along with finding the identity of the masked shinobi. He had no clue as to who he was and was certain most people in the group were not aware of his existence. And nothing pleased the Sannin more than to solve a mystery. Kimimaro, has Danzo returned yet? Orochimaru asked to his subordinate, standing beside him. Kimimaro was the sole survivor of the Kagaya clan who was found by Orochimaru near his hideout in Mizu no Kuni. He had pale skin, vivid green eyes, 2 scarlet dots on his forehead which all the members of his clan possessed, and shoulder-length white hair which he wore divided down the middle on his head, with 2 separate partings on either side of his face. I'm afraid not, Orochimaru-sama. Last I heard, the Kazekage and Danzo are still working on where to station their respective shinobi before the attack. Kimimaro replied obediently. I see. Anyway, return to your room. I need to work on some things. And contact Kabuto and the Dosu's team via the summons and ask them to keep an eye on Sasuke Uchiha. It'll be a shame if he's not able to adapt to the curse mark. Orochimaru ordered. With a bow, Kimimaro left the room and headed back to his own. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.